On a cold afternoon at the edge of a remote mountain region, a baby bobcat trembled as it hid among dry grass, exhausted after hours of wandering in search of its mother. Its weak cries echoed through the silent landscape, like a desperate plea from the wild. At that very moment, a massive Caucasian Shepherd dog appeared, its powerful frame standing in stark contrast to the tiny, fragile creature before it. But what happened next left everyone stunned. Instead of attacking, the dog gently picked up the baby bobcat and carried it home, as if protecting one of its own. What could have driven a breed known for guarding territory to act with such tenderness? Was there an invisible bond that transcended natural instinct? What followed would challenge everything we think we know about the line between wild animals and domestic guardians. Before we dive into this rare and emotional story, please like the video if you believe in the quiet miracles of compassion. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss more heart-touching stories like this one. The world was a crushing, roaring darkness. A newborn's desperate cry, thin and reedy, tore at the maelstrom, but it was swallowed whole, unheard by the blizzard's fury. The icy grip of the storm, a relentless, white-knuckled fist, had snatched her from warmth, from the scent of her mother, from the soft comfort of her siblings. Blind and vulnerable, the tiny bobcat kitten was merely a speck of life, a fragile, trembling thing against the wrath of the mountains. One moment, she had been safe, tucked amidst the familiar, earthy musk of her den, the rhythmic purr of her mother, a lullaby against her nascent ears. The next, a roaring current, a cold, violent force had ripped through their world. The flash flood, unleashed by the sudden torrential downpour that accompanied the brutal snowstorm, had been swift and merciless. She was tumbled, spun, a helpless leaf in an angry river, the freezing water a shock against her delicate skin. The cold, a predator far more, ancient than any to stalk the peaks, seeped into her bones, stealing what little heat her tiny body possessed. Each breath was a struggle, a shallow gasp that rattled in her minuscule chest. The world was a chaotic symphony of wind and water, an assault on every budding sense. Alone, freezing, her tiny body was ravaged by the elements. The relentless assault of the wind, a cruel, invisible hand, pushed and pulled, threatening to scatter her fragile form across the desolate landscape. The biting cold was a constant, excruciating ache, a steady drain on her last reserves. It promised to extinguish the fragile spark of life within her at any moment. This was the epitome of despair, a solitary speck against the vast, unforgiving wilderness. Her heart a frantic drum against the encroaching silence. Instinct, nascent and raw, screamed for warmth, for touch, for the comforting weight of her mother's body. But there was only the cold, the wind, and the terrifying, endless roar of the storm. Then a new scent, not the familiar musk of the den, nor the biting tang of pine and snow, but something different. Large, warm, and surprisingly soft. It was accompanied by a low rumble, a sound that vibrated through the snow-laden air, a deep baritone that was not the storm. Fear, a sharp, cold jab, pierced through the numbness. Another creature, but this was not the sleek, deadly scent of a fox, nor the heavy tread of a bear. This was bigger, and the rumble, while deep, lacked the predatory edge that instinct already recognized. Suddenly, a giant warmth enveloped her. It was overwhelming, a sudden blast of heat against her frozen skin, but it was not painful. It was relief. A furry wall, soft yet firm, cradled her. The rumble was closer now, a steady vibration that resonated through her tiny frame. It was a dog, her nascent senses dimly registered, a creature of immense size and an even more immense unexpected warmth. Fear still coiled in her belly, a tiny, tight knot, but it was slowly, impossibly, loosening its grip under the onslaught of sheer, blessed heat. Sinna, the biting wind was gone, replaced by the soft, almost rhythmic breathing of the giant. A new sensation, a wet, rough warmth, nudged her. It was a nose, exploring, investigating. She tensed, but the contact was gentle, tentative. It wasn't the sharp bite of a predator, nor the harsh push of the storm. It was curious. The warmth of the giant's body was a cocoon, a haven from the icy abyss she had just escaped. The world, which had been a symphony of pain and fear, was slowly, miraculously shifting its tune. The deep rumble turned into a soft whine, a low, comforting sound that vibrated through her, calming the frantic beat of her tiny heart. The giant moved, a gentle, rolling motion, and she was carried, cradled, away from the screaming wind and the biting cold. Then another shift. The giant settled down, and a different kind of warmth enveloped her. It was soft, fibrous, a complete encirclement. A new scent, clean and faintly human, mingled with the dog's warmth. A soft, distant murmur of voices like far-off thunder, but not threatening. A new touch, incredibly gentle, larger than anything she had ever known. A tiny, foreign prick on her flank, a sudden, sharp sting, made her flinch, but it was quickly followed by an even deeper, more pervasive warmth that spread through her small body. Then a cool, clear drop on her lips, a taste of life itself after an eternity of parched, aching thirst. Each tiny, tentative lick was a victory, a reaffirmation of her impossible survival. The world slowly quieted. The storm outside was still raging, a muffled roar in the distance, but inside where she lay, there was only warmth, softness, and the gentle, rhythmic rise and fall of the giant dog beside her. The humans, the towering beings whose shadows loomed large, were not scary anymore. They were the source of the warmth, the soft bedding, the cool water that quenched the deep thirst. The gentle prick, the momentary sting, had been followed by a profound sense of peace, a softening of the pain that had gripped her for what felt like an eternity. She drifted into a deep, dreamless sleep, the first true rest she had known, a tiny, impossible survivor cradled by the kindness of strangers, both furry and human. The howling abyss was behind her, and the gentle whispers of rescue had begun. The wind howled a familiar, bone-chilling song against the windows of the ranch house, a tune that usually sent Koga, the mighty Caucasian Shepherd, scrambling under the heavy dining room table. Tonight, though, the storm was a symphony of chaos. Sleet rattling like 1,000 tiny pebbles, wind tearing at the eaves, and the deep, resonant growl of thunder vibrating through the very earth. And yet, Koga was not under the table. He paced, a restless white phantom, his massive paws thudding softly on the wooden floor. David, his human, a large man with gentle hands, tried to soothe him, a calming murmur spilling from his lips. "Easy, boy. Just a storm. You're safe." But the words, usually a balm, did nothing. Koga nudged David's hand away with his massive head, a low whine rumbling in his chest. His senses, usually so attuned to the comfortable rhythm of the ranch, were screaming. Something was wrong, terribly wrong. A scent, faint yet piercing through the metallic tang of the storm, was calling to him. A wild, desperate plea carried on the wind. Sarah, David's wife, her red hair catching the dim lamplight, tried to wrap her arms around his thick neck, but Koga, usually so receptive to her touch, was a statue of unyielding intent. He let out a sharp, insistent bark, unlike any sound they'd ever heard from him. Not playful, not aggressive, but a sound of urgency, of pure, instinctual drive. He rammed his head against the door, the wood groaning in protest. David, startled by the sheer force, stumbled back. In that brief moment, Koga seized his chance. With a powerful lunge, he bypassed David, twisting his immense body to bypass Sarah. And with a final, desperate shove, the latch gave way with a groan of tortured metal. The door burst open, a gale of icy wind and snow instantly filling the warm space, snatching away the last vestiges of comfort. He was gone, plunging headfirst into the blinding white chaos, a colossal white shadow swallowed by the blizzard. The cold was an immediate shock, a brutal slap to his sensitive muzzle, stinging his eyes, but it barely registered. The scent, previously faint, was now stronger, sharper. Fear, pain, and something else. Something small and vulnerable. His paws, usually hesitant on slippery ice, found purchase on the snow-drifted ground. The wind howled in his ears, ripping at his thick fur, but he pushed against it, a massive, fur-clad battering ram against the storm's fury. He moved with a speed and determination that belied his fear of storms, his instincts overriding every fiber of his ingrained terror. He was no longer David and Sarah's gentle giant. He was a primal force, driven by an ancient imperative. Every muscle in Koga's body was taut, vibrating with a purpose unknown to him moments before. He lowered his massive head, his sensitive nose working overtime, sifting through the cacophony of odors the storm brought. The metallic tang of ice, the cold scent of pine, the sharp smell of fear from local deer huddled in groves. He dismissed them all. He was searching for a particular signature, a faint thread of distress woven into the fabric of the night. He plunged deeper into the swirling vortex of snow, his breath coming in ragged puffs of vapor, each one a testament to his strenuous effort. The ranch lights were long gone, swallowed by the storm, leaving him in a world of white and gray, of wind and biting cold. But the scent was growing, guiding him, pulling him forward like an invisible tether. Then a faint whimper, almost swallowed by the wind. Koga froze, his huge ears swiveling. He took another step, then another, his massive paws crunching the fresh snow. A few more paces, and there it was, a small matted shivering ball of fur huddled against the base of a snow-laden pine. It was tiny, impossibly small, and utterly helpless. A bobcat kitten, no bigger than his own paw, its eyes wide with terror, its tiny body trembling uncontrollably. A jolt went through Koga, a recognition deeper than thought. This was it. This was the call. This was why he had defied his greatest fear, why he had plunged into the heart of the storm. The scent of fear was still there, but now overlaid with a fragile, almost imperceptible warmth, a spark of life that desperately needed to be fanned. His instincts roared, clear and undeniable. He had to save it. The wind howled, a banshee shriek that rattled the old farmhouse windows, but within its depths, Koga moved, a silent, furry titan against the storm. He returned not with the usual triumphant bark of a guardian surveying his domain, but with an odd, subdued purpose. The front door, usually a mere obstacle, became a portal through which he carried not a trophy, but a fragile secret. Hours later, or perhaps only minutes, time blurring in the tempest, Koga reappeared, soaked and trembling, his massive frame radiating an unusual anxiety. His powerful jaws, capable of snapping bone, now held something small, something utterly improbable, with an almost sacred tenderness. He crossed the worn wooden floor, each step heavy yet measured, and then, with a soft exhalation that was almost a sigh, he lowered the object by the roaring fireplace. His dark eyes, usually fixed on the horizon, now turned to David and Sarah. Pleading, urgent, a language beyond barks. David, wiping snow from his beard, initially thought it was a drowned rabbit, a casualty of the storm Koga had brought in for some inexplicable reason. But as he knelt, his breath caught. Sarah gasped, a hand flying to her mouth. It wasn't a rabbit, it was a kitten, but not a house cat. This was a creature of the wild, a tiny half-frozen bobcat, its spotted fur barely distinguishable against the hearth rug, its breath a shallow, almost imperceptible flutter. The world was a crushing weight. The cold was a relentless fist, squeezing the last remnants of warmth from her small body. She remembered a frantic scramble, a desperate cry, then nothing but the bone-aching chill that seeped into her very marrow. Then a sudden jarring lift, a rough softness enveloping her, not crushing, but carrying. The scent was immense, overwhelming. Wet earth, pine, and something vast and musky, yet strangely protective. Fear, a sharp, cold shard, pierced through the numbness. What enormous beast had found her? Would this be the end? The only sensation was the constant jostle, the gentle cradle of something impossibly huge around her. The world spun, then went dark again, only the cold remaining. Then a new sensation. Not the biting wind, but a radiating warmth. The heavy, damp scent remained, but now it was joined by a smoky, comforting aroma. A faint flicker of heat touched her fur. She was no longer moving. A vast shadow loomed, then another, even bigger. Giants. Their voices were low rumblings. Not snarls, but indecipherable sounds. Fear tightened its icy grip. She tried to flatten herself, to disappear, but her limbs were unresponsive, heavy, dead weight. A giant hand, warm and strangely gentle, touched her. Not the brutal grip she remembered from distant, hazy memories. Hands that had pushed, prodded, then thrown. This hand was soft, almost hesitant. It lifted her, and the world tilted. Panic flared, a brief, hot spark in the cold void, but it quickly faded into a profound exhaustion. She was placed on something soft, a thick, fleecy substance that held the glorious, impossible heat. A new smell filled her tiny nostrils. Not the vast, musky scent of the carrier, but something clean, medicinal, and a faint, sweet milkiness. A sharp, momentary sting, a pinpoint of fire on her skin. She flinched, an involuntary tremor, but then a strange wave of relief began to spread. The terrible ache in her bones lessened. The crushing cold receded, chased by a creeping warmth that started deep inside and pulsed outwards. Water. Sweet, clean water, trickling into her mouth from a tiny, impossibly soft sponge. It was a miracle. Days, perhaps an eternity, of parched thirst had ended. Each droplet was a tiny explosion of life, coaxing her throat to swallow, her body to remember what it meant to live. The giants, their shadows still immense, were no longer terrifying. They moved with a quiet urgency, their murmurs soft, almost soothing. The biggest giant, the one with the deep voice and the bristly beard, spoke in hushed tones. The other giant, the female, stroked her fur, a feather-light touch that seemed to chase away the last vestiges of the storm's icy grip. She felt the slow return of her own body, the prickle of pins and needles as blood flowed back, the dull ache of reawakening muscles. It was painful, yes, but it was a pain of returning life, not of dying. The musky giant, the one who had carried her, lay nearby, a vast, warm presence. Its breathing was deep and rhythmic, a comforting rumble. She could smell its unique scent, now mingled with the cleaner human smells. It was no longer a threat. It was protector. Yeah, the gentle warmth of the blanket, the steady beat of a human heart through the hand that held her, the faint or reassuring scent of milk. These were her new realities. The vast, scary world outside the den, the world of biting winds and empty bellies, receded into a blur of bad dreams. Here in this strange, warm cavern of giants, there was something else. A whisper of safety, a dawning awareness that perhaps, just so perhaps, the terrifying hands and overwhelming sense were not bringing harm, but something else entirely. Care. A strange, unfamiliar, yet deeply felt sensation of being held. Her eyes, once clouded with approaching death, slowly cleared. They focused, for a fleeting moment, on the giant faces above her, on the immense, soft body of the carrier, on the shimmering warmth of the fire. The world was still confusing, still immense, but it was no longer a place of unyielding cold and terror. It was a place of soft hands, warm blankets, and the inexplicable, silent miracle of a protector whose instincts defied all nature's rules. She was alive, barely, but alive. The world was a crushing weight of cold. A dull ache throbbed in the tiny creature's head, a relentless drumbeat against the silence that had followed the roaring giants in the sudden warmth of the furry wall. Now even that warmth was fading, replaced by a deep, shivering emptiness that gnawed from the inside out. He tried to move, to curl tighter into a ball, but his limbs felt heavy, disconnected. A faint, sweet scent, like dried leaves and old earth, still clung to him, a ghost of a memory of another giant, a warm, protective presence that was now utterly gone. All that remained was the chill, the dizzying confusion, and a burgeoning fear that tightened his small chest. A new scent, sharp and metallic, invaded his senses. Then a pressure, gentle but firm, wrapped around him. He whimpered, a sound so small it was barely a breath. The giant hands were warm, much warmer than the icy floor, and they moved him. Up. He was lifted, cradled against something soft and smelling of human. He didn't like it. He struggled weakly, instinctively, but his body wouldn't obey. The cold was too deep, too encompassing. He heard hushed voices, deep rumbles that vibrated through the giant's chest. Fear pricked at him, a sharp, cold needle. He wanted the leafy den, the familiar scent of his mother, the comforting rhythm of her breathing. But there was only this alien warmth, these strange giants, and the relentless shiver that racked his small frame. David's hands trembled as he held the tiny bobcat, whose name they still didn't know, carefully swaddled in a towel. Its fur, a beautiful pattern of brown and black, was matted and still damp in places. "He's so cold, Sarah," David choked out, his voice thick with fear. Sarah was already frantically setting up a makeshift warming station, a heating pad on the lowest setting, covered with several layers of towels and a hot water bottle wrapped in fleece. "We need to get his core temperature up, fast," she instructed, her voice tight with suppressed panic. The little creature was barely responsive, its breath shallow, almost imperceptible. David gently placed the kitten onto the warm towels, hovering over it, trying to transfer his own body heat. "I'm calling Dr. Evelyn again. She has to know what to do." The seconds stretched into an eternity as David dialed, the muted ringing of the phone echoing the desperate beat of his own heart. Dr. Evelyn's voice, when she finally answered, was gravely serious. "David, Sarah, listen carefully. Neonate bobcats are incredibly fragile. Hypothermia at this stage, it's a death sentence more often than not. We're talking about minutes, not hours. Is he moving at all?" David described the kitten's barely perceptible movements, the shallow breathing. "He's trying," David whispered, the words barely audible. "He's fighting." Evelyn's sigh was heavy, audible even over the phone. "I'm on my way. Keep him warm, but don't overheat him. A gradual increase. Get a few drops of sugar water into him if you can, just to try and stabilize his blood sugar. But David, prepare yourselves. The odds are stacked against him." Her words, though professional, were a grim prognosis, a cold splash of reality that threatened to extinguish the last ember of hope. A new sensation, something wet and faintly sweet, touched his lips. He flinched, but the pressure was persistent, gentle. Instinct, deep and ancient, urged him to swallow. A tiny drop slid down his throat, a surprising burst of energy, a fleeting warmth that spread through his belly. It was confusing, this mix of frightening giant hands and the strange, life-giving liquid. He wanted to push it away, to hide, but the weakness was overwhelming. His body was a vessel of cold, and this sweetness, however alien, offered a momentary reprieve. He tasted another drop, then another, the strange giant's voice a low, comforting rumble in the background. Hours later, the world was still cold, but less intensely so. The giant hands had changed, new ones appearing, smelling of antiseptic and something sharp. A prick, a momentary sting, then a sudden, intense warmth blooming in his small leg. He cried out, a weak, reedy sound, but the giant's touch was soothing, a gentle stroke against his head. He was in a small, enclosed space now, with a soft, persistent hum and a pervasive warmth that finally began to seep into his bones. The shivers subsided, replaced by a deep, weary ache. He could feel the soft material beneath him, smell the clean scent of it. The giants were still there, their voices lower now, hushed, but the fear had begun to recede, replaced by a profound exhaustion. He curled up, seeking the deepest warmth, the last vestiges of cold finally releasing their icy grip. He was alive. For now, the cold, it was the first, most pervasive memory, a deep, bone-aching cold that settled in the tiny creature's very core, a constant tremor beneath the matted coarse fur. Then came the terrifying jolt, the sudden lift, the overwhelming scent of something enormous, shaggy, and not quite predator, not quite prey. It was Koga, the colossal Caucasian Shepherd, whose massive jaws had, against all natural law, gently cradled the lost Bobcat Kitten and carried it home. For the kitten, it was a blur of disorientation, of being jostled against a soft, warm expanse of fur, the world a dizzying sway. The harsh light of the human den was a shock, followed by the terrifying, looming giants whose voices rumbled like distant thunder. But then came the soft cloth, the gentle probing, the strange sting that made the small body tense and cry out, only to be followed by an exquisite warmth that slowly began to seep into its frozen limbs. Evelyn's voice, usually so steady, had a tremor of defeat when she spoke of the odds. He's barely a week old, maybe less. Dehydrated, hypothermic. He might not make it through the night. Her words hung heavy in the air, a pronouncement that seemed to chill the room even further. But for the giant with the kind, deep eyes, Ben, and the smaller, gentler giant, Sarah, giving up was never an option. And for Koga, whose enormous head rested near the little box, his golden eyes never leaving the tiny bundle, giving up was a concept that simply didn't exist in his world. He had found it. He would protect it. That was his instinct, untamed and absolute. The kitten, whose name still eluded them, felt only the immense, unwavering presence. The smell of the giant dog was a comfort now, not a threat. It was the smell of warmth, of a living, breathing shield against the encroaching cold that still tried to reclaim its hold. The faint pulse of the little heart, a frantic hummingbird beat, seemed to slow just a fraction when Koga nudged the box closer with his nose, a soft whine escaping his chest. The humans, too, brought their own strange comforts. A minuscule dropper, tasting of something sweet and life-giving, touched its lips. The tiny tongue, rough like sandpaper, instinctively lapped. A fleeting burst of energy, then exhaustion claimed it once more. Hours crawled by, each one a silent vigil. The Bobcat Kitten's breast grew shallower, more ragged. Each tiny gasp seemed to fight against an invisible weight. A shiver, not of cold, but of a deeper failing, ran through its tiny frame. Ben, his face etched with worry, murmured, "He's fading." Sarah's hand covered her mouth, a silent gasp. But Koga, whose instincts were honed by generations of protecting the vulnerable, knew. He sensed the slipping away, the fragile thread about to snap. With a startlingly delicate movement, he extended his enormous paw, nudging the cardboard box. Then, with an act that defied belief, he gently, meticulously, used his nose to tip the box, coaxing the fading kitten out onto the floor. He then performed an act that would puzzle veterinarians and scientists for years to come. He lay down, rolling onto his side, exposing his vast, warm belly. Then, with an almost impossible tenderness, he nudged the kitten, pushing it gently, firmly against the soft, warm expanse of his stomach. A low rumble began to emanate from his chest, a deep, resonant vibration that pulsed through his entire body. It was not a growl. It was not a whine. It was a purr. A profound, desperate, nurturing purr, deep and guttural, vibrating through the very air, a testament to a cross-species love that transcended all logic. The tiny Bobcat Kitten, for a moment, seemed to shudder. Then, incredibly, its body settled against the powerful, pulsing warmth. The rhythmic vibration from Koga's chest was a lullaby, a desperate attempt to coax life back into the tiny, failing body. For the Bobcat Kitten, it was a sudden, profound shift. The cold was gone, replaced by a powerful, thrumming warmth that penetrated every freezing cell. The vibrations coursed through its small bones, a strange, comforting pressure. It felt like being held not by a giant, but by something primal and ancient, a deep-seated instinctual comfort. The rhythm was mesmerizing, a heartbeat of hope. Slowly, the shallow, ragged breast began to deepen, ever so slightly, a faint twitch in a tiny paw, a flicker behind closed eyelids. The night was long, A battle fought in silence, fueled by Koga's unwavering instinct and the human's desperate prayers. Morning light, tentative and pale, eventually seeped through the windows. Ben, who had dozed fitfully, jolted awake. He leaned forward, heart pounding. Sarah, who had never truly slept, held her breath. Koga, still purring softly, stirred, his eyes opening slowly. And then, from the bundle of fur against his massive chest, a sound. A faint, raspy, but utterly determined cry. A tiny, indignant, undeniably alive mule. The Bobcat Kitten, against all odds, had found its way back from the brink, cradled by the unbound, fierce, and utterly miraculous instinct of a mother, found in the most unexpected of hearts. A shuddering breath, a sound no more than a whisper of rustling leaves escaped the tiny form. For what felt like an eternity, it had been a prisoner of cold, a slave to the crushing weight of impending oblivion. Then a new sensation had begun to bloom, a gentle warmth that seeped into bones, chasing away the icy grip. It was a rhythmic thrum, a steady pulse against its delicate side, accompanied by a soft, insistent heat. The world beyond was a blurry haze of confused discomfort, punctuated by the metallic tang of something pushed against its gums and the confusing, intrusive scent of large, unknown creatures. Fear was a constant companion, a sharp prickle on its skin, but now nestled against that steady warmth, it began to recede, replaced by a strange, unbidden sense of safety. Then a flicker, a pinprick of light piercing the veil of unconsciousness. It was dim at first, a vague suggestion of form and shadow. Then it sharpened, resolved itself. Two dark pools, deep and liquid, filled its field of vision. They were impossibly large, framed by shaggy pale fur, and held a gentle, unwavering gaze. The steady thrum against its side intensified, a soft whine vibrating through the large creature's chest. Another flicker, and then the second eye opened, wider this time, taking in the impossible, overwhelming scale of its new world. Confusion warred with a nascent curiosity. This giant, with its soft, warm fur and comforting heartbeat, was the source of its survival. This was Mother. The sharp scent of antiseptic and something sweet, like warm milk, tickled Evelyn's nostrils as she hurried into the rescue clinic's intensive care unit. Her heart was a frantic drum against her ribs. Last night had been a blur of frantic phone calls, the drive to the remote property, and the grim reality of the tiny Bobcat Kitten, barely a flicker of life left in its frozen body. Koga, the gentle giant, had been her last, desperate hope. And now, she stopped short, a gasp catching in her throat. There, nestled into the vast expanse of Koga's creamy fur, was a miracle. The Bobcat Kitten, no larger than her hand, had its eyes open. Both of them. They were still cloudy, a pale, nascent green, but they were open, fixed on Koga with an intensity that belied its size. Koga, ever vigilant, let out a soft, rumbling purr, her big head resting protectively over the tiny creature. The air hummed with an unspoken understanding between them. Evelyn felt the sting of tears in her eyes. It was more than just warmth. Koga's steady heartbeat, her calm presence, had been the anchor that pulled the little one back from the brink. The irreversible hypothermia, the vets had warned, was almost certainly fatal. But Koga, in her boundless instinctive love, had defied all odds. Evelyn moved closer, her movements slow and deliberate, not wanting to disturb the fragile tableau. The tiny bobcat, Shadow as she'd mentally christened him, still looked skeletal, its small chest raising and falling with shallow, hurried breaths. But those eyes, those beautiful, wild eyes, now held a spark. It was the spark of life, of recognition, of a tentative trust forming in the most unlikely of circumstances. She checked the vitals, the small monitor beeping a steady, if still weak, rhythm. The worst was over. Koga had truly done it. She was Shadow's mother, undeniably, irrevocably, now and forever. It was a profound truth, a love so pure it transcended the very fabric of their species. A gentle whine escaped Shadow. It was a sound of discomfort, a tiny rumble in its chest, and Koga immediately responded. She shifted, licking the top of the kitten's head with a vast, gentle tongue, her whole body radiating comfort. Shadow squirmed, trying to push closer, seeking the epicenter of that unwavering warmth. The humans, Evelyn realized, were still giants in Shadow's eyes, their movements sometimes jarring, their smells overwhelming. But Koga was safety. Koga was home. Evelyn carefully prepared a tiny syringe of specialized kitten formula, warmed to body temperature. The first few drops were difficult, Shadow flinching, its instincts screaming at the invasion. But Koga nudged her gently, a silent encouragement. With patience and the unwavering comfort of Koga's presence, Shadow eventually latched on, a tentative suckling that quickly became more eager. The nutrients, the taste of clean, warm nourishment after days of starvation, must have been a revelation. Its little body trembled with the effort, but the tiny gulps were a melody to Evelyn's ears. Every drop was a step away from the brink, a victory against the harshness of the wild. The kitten, fragile as a spun glass, still had a long road ahead. Infections could flare, its tiny immune system was compromised, and the trauma of abandonment would linger. But for now, as Shadow drifted back to sleep, a full belly warm against Koga's side, there was peace. There was a promise. The harsh reality of its past, the cold, the hunger, the fear, was being slowly, painstakingly overwritten by the gentle rhythm of a Caucasian shepherd's heart. And in that quiet, miraculous moment, Evelyn knew with absolute certainty that Shadow had truly been reborn. The world had once been a vast, terrifying expanse of hunger and cold, a blur of rustling leaves and the sharp scent of fear. Then came the sudden jolt, the overwhelming warmth of a large, shaggy body, and the strange rhythmic thump, thump, thump that vibrated through tiny bones. Now here in this new place, a wild heart, still fragile and easily spooked, found itself tethered to a presence both massive and reassuring. This giant, Koga the Caucasian Shepherd, was a teacher unlike any Shadow the Bobcat could have imagined, navigating this bewildering new existence with a patience that defied explanation. The first few days were a confusing haze of new smells and textures. The soft blanket that smelled faintly of the giant dog, the unfamiliar taste of a warm, milky liquid from a bowl, pushed closer by a colossal, wet nose. Each human, David and Sarah, moved with a slowness that felt deliberate, their voices low and calm, unlike the sudden, jarring noises of the wild. Shadow's tiny stomach, a gnawing emptiness for too long, began to fill, the dull ache replaced by a pleasant warmth. Koga the Caucasian Shepherd, with his immense presence, was an anchor. He would lie near Shadow's small den, a soft rumble in his chest, a constant, comforting presence. It was Koga who nudged a stray leaf into Shadow's path, then demonstrated a low crouch, eyes focused, a mimicry of the hunt. Shadow, initially bewildered, began to watch, absorbing the silent lessons. Hiding became a game. Koga the Caucasian Shepherd would amble away, then return, searching for Shadow the Bobcat Kitten, who would be tucked beneath a low-hanging branch or nestled within a patch of tall grass, guided by Koga's subtle nudges. The giant dog taught with his body, not with barks. He showed Shadow how to blend in, how to vanish. The world, once overtly hostile, began to reveal its safe spaces, its hidden corners. Then came the horses, towering beasts that Shadow initially perceived as immense, hoofed threats. Koga the Caucasian Shepherd, however, approached them with a calm respect, nudging Shadow closer, letting the Bobcat Kitten sniff the warm, hay-scented air around their legs. The horses, used to Koga, merely blinked their large eyes, their presence no longer terrifying. Their unusual bond, a bobcat kitten and a guardian dog, did not go unnoticed. David and Sarah spoke of it in hushed, amazed tones. Soon the ranch, once a quiet sanctuary, hummed with activity. Camera crews, their lenses like giant unblinking eyes, descended. Conservationists, their voices filled with a mixture of awe and concern, spoke of Shadow's unique situation. To Shadow the Bobcat, these newcomers were merely more giants, albeit quieter ones, their sense new and intriguing. Koga the Caucasian Shepherd remained Shadow's unwavering center, a constant presence that filtered out the strangeness, making it manageable. He would position himself between Shadow and the unfamiliar faces, a silent, furry bulwark. The wildness, deep within Shadow's small heart, was not diminished by Koga's lessons or the human's gentle care. It was refined. The instincts were honed, sharpened, not blunted. The hunt for a particularly persistent fly, the calculated pounce on a fallen leaf, the rapid darting for cover when an unexpected bird flew overhead. These were not learned behaviors, but ancient impulses, now guided by a unique education. Shadow the Bobcat was learning to be a bobcat under the tutelage of a dog. The blurring of two worlds, the wild and the domesticated, created something extraordinary. Shadow was thriving, its body strong, its mind alert, its spirit free, yet paradoxically anchored. The fear that had once defined existence was replaced by a quiet confidence, a burgeoning trust in its improbable guardian. The warmth had become a constant, a soothing blanket against the sharp edges of memory. Shadow the Bobcat, no longer a shivering, disoriented bundle, now felt the rumble of the house, the rhythmic thud of the giant paw steps, and the gentle scratch behind the ears from a hand that once seemed terrifying. But with the comfort came a new stirring, a whisper in the blood that spoke of different paths, different calls. The scent of pine and damp earth, carried on the wind through an open window, became a tantalizing song, a counterpoint to the reliable smell of kibble and clean bedding. He was growing, his lean frame filling out, the awkwardness of cubhood giving way to a nascent grace. His paws, once small and soft, were now substantial, tipped with retractable claws that he sometimes, without thinking, extended and retracted into the soft folds of a blanket, feeling the satisfying give and take. The giant's hand, the one that offered food and comfort, now sometimes held a string, a feather, and the instincts flared, swift and sure. A twitch, a pounce, a mock kill. The games were exhilarating, a surge of power and focus. But even in play, a deeper current ran. The feather wasn't just a toy, it was a bird, small and vulnerable. The string wasn't just a string, it was a scampering, fleeting presence. The giant, the kind one with the soft voice and warm hands, began to look at him differently. There was a new sadness in her eyes, a sort of heavy quiet that he couldn't quite decipher, but felt like a low growl in the air. Dr. Evelyn, another kind giant whose smell was a mix of antiseptic and something comforting, like warm milk, would visit more often. Her voice, usually light and encouraging, now carried a somber undertone that resonated with the subtle shift in the air. Shadow didn't understand the words, but he understood the vibrations, the tension in the giant's shoulders, the way their gazes lingered on him with a bittersweet quality. He remembered the gnawing hunger, the desperate thirst, the aching cold before the giant dog, the massive shaggy shepherd, had found him. He remembered the sharp, sudden sting of the needle, a brief, terrifying pain followed by a wave of warmth and a deep, dreamless sleep. The water that tasted like heaven, the soft meat that restored strength, the clean straw that cushioned his aching body, all of it had come from the giants. They had pulled him from the edge, nurtured him, taught him to trust the enormous, gentle presence of humans. He knew their scents, their rhythms, the creak of the floorboards that signaled their approach, the particular way their hands felt when they stroked his fur. But lately, the giant's dog, a familiar, comforting presence, seemed to understand something he didn't. The dog would lie a little further away, its large head resting on its paws, watching him with an ancient, knowing gaze. There was no judgment, only a deep, quiet observation. Shadow found himself less inclined to nap curled against the dog's warmth, his own energy levels surging, a restlessness blooming within him. One afternoon, a small, quick movement caught his eye in the garden. Not a toy, not a feather on a string, but a living, breathing, scuttling thing. a tiny field mouse quick as a blink, every fiber of his being ignited. The stalk was silent, fluid, a whisper of movement through the ornamental grasses. The pounce was instinctive, precise, a blur of tawny fur and focused power. He felt the soft give of the tiny body, the cessation of struggle, and a profound primal satisfaction surged through him. It wasn't hunger, not exactly, but something deeper, a confirmation of his own nature. He brought his catch back, dropping it with quiet pride at the feet of the kind giant. Her gasp was soft, not angry, but laced with that familiar sad quiet. Her hand, instead of reaching to stroke him, hesitated, then gently pushed a lock of hair from her face. Her eyes, when they met his, were filled with a profound sorrow that echoed the growing ache in his own developing wild heart. He didn't understand why his successful hunt made her so sad, why the pride he felt wasn't mirrored in her gaze. The whispers of the wild grew louder. The house, once a haven of absolute safety, now felt small. The soft bed, once a luxurious comfort, now felt like a cage when the moon pulled at something ancient within him, a yearning for open spaces, for the cold snap of night air against his fur. He would stand at the back door, ears swiveling, nose testing the wind, trying to decipher the complex tapestry of scents that lay beyond the familiar garden fence. The scent of other animals, distant and wild, called to him like a siren song. He would pace, a quiet, restless energy building within him, the instinct to roam, to hunt, to truly be himself, growing stronger with each passing day. The giant's touch, though still comforting, felt different too. He still sought it out, still purred against her hand, but a part of him now held back at a tiny, almost imperceptible distance that hadn't been there before. He was still her shadow, the rescued cub, the cherished companion. But something else was awakening, a deep, undeniable truth of what he was meant to be, a truth that whispered of the wild, of freedom, and of an inevitable, heart-wrenching farewell. The joy of being safe was slowly, painfully giving way to the undeniable pull of destiny. The air itself vibrated with a primal hum, a low, guttural thrum that was both a lament and a fierce declaration. It was the sound of a mother's protective fury, raw and untamed, as the wild, a relentless, ancient force, called its own back home. The day of departure had arrived, a bitter pill in a world that had, for a brief, shining moment, felt safe. A specialized team from Appalachian Wildlife Conservation, led by the quiet, competent Dr. Maya, had pulled up the long gravel driveway. Their vehicle, a pristine white van adorned with an insignia of a soaring hawk, hummed with a quiet authority that spoke of purpose and professionalism. Koga, usually so placid, sensed the shift in the atmosphere the moment the stranger stepped out. Her massive body, usually a warm, furry mountain, became rigid, every muscle coiled. A low growl rumbled deep in her chest, a sound that vibrated through the floorboards and up into David and Sarah's own anxious hearts. Shadow, the small bobcat whose life Koga had so unexpectedly saved, was nestled against Koga's side, a picture of wild vulnerability under the shepherd's watchful eye. For weeks, Shadow had been a creature of hesitant trust, those amber eyes slowly losing their haunted look, her small body gaining weight, her once matted fur now a glossy testament to the gentle care she'd received. But today, the wildness that had been carefully nurtured back into her was about to be unleashed in a different way. Koga became an immovable barrier. When Dr. Maya, her voice calm and soothing, attempted to approach Shadow, Koga moved, placing her enormous body squarely between the bobcat and the human. A guttural snarl, far more menacing than any David or Sarah had ever heard from her, ripped through the quiet house. It wasn't aggression directed at them, but a desperate maternal plea to protect her adopted charge. David and Sarah exchanged a look, their hearts simultaneously swelling with pride for Koga's fierce loyalty and breaking at the impending separation. They knew this was right, knew Shadow needed to be wild again, but watching Koga, seeing her raw, instinctual grief, made the decision sting with an almost unbearable pain. David knelt, trying to soothe Koga, his hand stroking her bristling fur. "It's okay, girl," he murmured, his own voice thick with emotion. "She has to go home." But Koga was beyond human reasoning. Her heart spoke a language older than words. It took both David and Sarah, their movements slow and deliberate, their hearts heavy, to gently restrain Koga. Her struggles were powerful, a desperate dance of maternal grief. Finally, with Koga held firmly, though still whimpering and straining against their hold, Dr. Maya and her team moved swiftly. Shadow, sensing the shift, the withdrawal of her protector, exploded with a sudden feral energy. The small bobcat, who had once purred against Koga's side, was now a snarling, spitting ball of wildness. She clawed at her rescuers, her small, sharp claws tearing at their thick gloves, her snarls surprisingly loud for such a compact creature. Every instinct screamed danger. The large looming figures, the strange scents, the sudden confining space. It was all a terrifying echo of the world Koga had saved her from. The sting of the needle was sharp, a momentary pain that startled Shadow, followed by a strange, warm wave that started at her paws and spread quickly through her limbs. Her struggles, fierce and unwavering moments before, began to soften, her snarls turning into low, confused growls that faded into a soft whimper. The world blurred around the edges, the towering humans receding into indistinct shapes. She was lifted gently into a soft-sided carrier, the dark fabric enclosing her like a comforting, albeit unfamiliar, burrow. The scent of Koga, of David and Sarah, was fading, replaced by new, unfamiliar smells: antiseptic, metal, and the faint, intriguing scent of other wild creatures. A jumble of images flashed through her mind: the icy cold of the river, the sting of hunger, the sudden, overwhelming warmth of Koga's fur, the gentle touch of the giant's hands offering food, pain, then relief, fear, then comfort, and now Yana, what? As the van pulled away, a single piercing cry ripped through the air. Koga's howl, a mournful sound of profound loss that echoed the ache in David, in Sarah's own hearts. But Dr. Maya, watching Shadow curled now and breathing softly in her carrier, knew. The bobcat's snarls, her desperate clawing at her rescuers, were not a sign of failure. For they were the most beautiful, heartbreaking testament to success. They were the re-emerging wildness, the raw, untamed spirit that meant Shadow was ready, truly ready, to go home. The heartbreak of letting go was simply the price of true freedom. The ranch, usually alive with the symphony of rustling leaves, distant cattle lowing, and the occasional barks of working dogs, now held a silence that felt heavier than stone. It was a silence born of absence, a gaping void where a tiny wild spirit once flickered. The air itself seemed to mourn, each breath drawn, feeling like a sigh. Koga, the magnificent Caucasian Shepherd, was the first to shatter this fragile quiet. Her first wail was a sound David and Sarah would never forget. A guttural, primal cry of despair that tore through the morning calm, echoing off the barn walls and across the pastures. It wasn't just a bark, it was a dirge, a lament for a missing child. Koga raced, a blur of cream and gray fur, her massive frame moving with an uncharacteristic, frantic energy. She plunged into the tall grasses where Shadow the bobcat had loved to stalk imaginary prey. Sniffing furiously, her nose working overtime. She circled the old oak tree, then darted towards the porch, her frantic searches punctuated by those heart-wrenching howls. Each cry was a needle piercing David and Sarah's already fractured hearts. They watched, helpless, their own grief mirroring Koga's, a shared silent scream for the tiny bobcat that had, against all odds, burrowed deep into their lives. David knelt, extending a hand to Koga as she returned, panting, her eyes wide and searching. "Koga, girl, it's okay," he murmured, his voice thick with unshed tears. He tried to comfort her, stroking her dense fur, but she merely pushed past him, her whimpers growing louder, more insistent. She scratched at the back door, then bounded to the edge of the woods, her head cocked, listening for the familiar rustle of a small, agile body. Sarah joined David, her arm wrapped around his waist, both of them feeling the heavy cloak of emptiness that had fallen over their home. "She doesn't understand," Sarah whispered, her voice cracking. "How do you explain to a dog that this is for Shadow's own good?" The truth was, they barely understood it themselves. Intellectually, they knew Shadow, the bobcat, once a frightened orphan kitten, needed to be wild. He was a creature of instinct and force, not of domestic comforts, but their hearts refused to accept the logic. They remembered the first time Koga had brought him home, a scrawny, terrified bundle of fur, eyes wide with fear, clinging to her side. They remembered the slow, painstaking process of trust, the way his tiny paws had eventually kneaded against Koga's fur, the purrs that rumbled like a tiny engine. They remembered the glint of his intelligent eyes, the playful pounces, the quiet companionship he offered. Now, all those memories felt like ghosts haunting their once vibrant home. The ranch, which had buzzed with the secret joy of Shadow's presence, now felt hollow. The absence was everywhere. No tiny paw prints in the dew-kissed grass in the morning. No sudden playful ambush from behind a potted plant. No quiet rustle in the corner of the living room, indicating a small, curious bobcat was exploring. Even the other dogs, sensing Koga's profound distress, were subdued, lying in quiet corners, occasionally glancing at their distraught leader with mournful eyes. The profound sadness permeated every nook and cranny, a thick, suffocating blanket. David found himself staring at the spot on the rug where Shadow the bobcat often napped, expecting to see a flash of spotted fur, only to be met with emptiness. Sarah caught herself reaching for the small bowl where Shadow's special food had been, before her hand dropped, heavy and useless. Koga's mournful cries continued intermittently throughout the day, a constant reminder of the raw, unadulterated grief that had consumed them all. She refused to eat, nudging her bowl away with her nose. Her attention focused solely on the outside, as if willing Shadow the bobcat to reappear. It was a testament to the depth of their bond, an unbreakable connection forged between a massive guardian dog and a tiny wildcat, a bond that transcended species and instinct. Their attempts to console her were futile. Koga would only lean into their touch for a moment, her tail giving a weak, hesitant wag before her head would lift again, her ears twitching, perpetually listening for the sounds that would never come. It was a heartbreaking cycle of hope and crushing disappointment, played out over and over. The absence of Shadow the bobcat wasn't just a physical void, it was an emotional one, a constant ache in the chest. They had given him life, nurture, and the chance to thrive. But in return, he had given them something equally precious, an expanded capacity for love, a testament to the power of compassion, and a glimpse into the wild heart of nature. And now that heart, once beating so vibrantly within their home, was gone, leaving only echoes of sorrow. From the wild's embrace, a silent message arrives, a promise of thriving independence. Months blurred into a quiet procession, each passing week a testament to the passage of time and the slow, arduous process of healing that extended far beyond physical wounds. The ache in the family's heart, though dulled by the steady rhythm of daily life, still thrummed beneath the surface, a low, persistent hum of grief. Koga, the vast Caucasian Shepherd, remained a sentinel of silent sorrow, his usually boisterous spirit subdued, his gaze often fixed on the distant tree line as if searching for a phantom presence. Then a small envelope arrived, unassuming, amidst the usual bills and junk mail, from the rehabilitation center. Inside, nestled amongst a brief, typewritten note, was a photo, a blurry, grainy image captured by a trail camera. It was Shadow, unmistakably, powerfully, utterly Shadow. The once small, lost bundle of matted fur and sharp fear was now a formidable adult bobcat, magnificent and wild. The photo, though imperfect, showed her in the snowy expanse of what the note identified as the Eagles Canyon release area. Her coat, a pristine canvas of tawny and black spots, seemed to shimmer even in the grainy capture. Her lean, muscled body was a portrait of untamed strength, a predator perfectly adapted to her environment. Shadow Eagles Canyon Release Area. Thriving, thank you, the note read, a succinct message that carried the weight of 100 unspoken words. It was a jolt, a sudden, powerful surge of comfort that rippled through the grieving household. This visual confirmation of her successful rewilding, of her very existence in the wild, brought a measure of peace that they hadn't realized they desperately craved. It was a testament not just to the center's work, but to Shadow's own resilient spirit, a fierce determination that had navigated the terrifying chasm between a lost cub and a thriving apex predator. For Shadow, the early days of her rescue had been a bewildering kaleidoscope of sensations. The giant paws of the enormous dog, Koga, had been both terrifyingly large and surprisingly gentle. The world had tilted, then spun, as she was carried, a small, shivering bundle of fear, towards an unknown future. The smell of human had been overpowering, an alien scent that prickled her sensitive nose, overriding the familiar, comforting earth and pine. She remembered a prickling sting, a momentary, sharp pain in her flank, followed by an overwhelming lethargy that stole her fear, wrapping her in a hazy warmth. Later there were hands, huge, soft hands that didn't grab or hurt, but stroked hesitantly at first, then with reassuring firmness. The world had been a blur of soft blankets, the unfamiliar smell of antiseptic, and the distant murmuring voices of the giants. Her body, once an agony of aching bones and gnawing hunger, began to feel different. The terrible emptiness in her belly was replaced by a strange, new sensation: fullness, warmth. The water, clear and cool, tasted like rain after a long drought, washing away the metallic tang of fear and dehydration from her mouth. The sting of her wounds, once a constant companion, began to recede, replaced by a dull throb that gradually faded into nothingness. The giants, initially terrifying, slowly began to morph into something else. They moved with a strange, deliberate slowness around her, their voices soft, never sharp. Their scent, still alien, no longer triggered the primal urge to flee. Instead, it became associated with the taste of tender, easily swallowed meat, with the gentle touch of a warm cloth on her fur, with the quiet rustle of fresh bedding. Trust, a concept entirely new to her wild instincts, began to take root, a fragile sprout in the harsh terrain of her past. She learned to anticipate their movements, to distinguish the gentle ones from the ones that meant a momentary prodding or a quick, stinging shot, always followed by a surge of relief, a loosening of the tightness in her chest. Her days became a rhythm of eating, sleeping, and slowly, cautiously exploring her increasingly larger enclosures. She watched the other animals through the fences, some timid, some bold, all bearing their own silent stories of loss and rescue. The wildness, though temporarily contained, never truly left her. It stirred within her, a constant whisper of wind through pines, the scent of fresh prey, the thrill of the chase. The humans understood this, it seemed. They didn't try to tame her spirit, only to mend her body and soothe her fear. They gave her puzzles to solve, branches to climb, and eventually the subtle, unmistakable scent of the larger wild beyond the fences. Then came the day of her release. The air was crisp, scented with pine and snow, familiar and exhilarating. The door opened not to another enclosure, but to the vast, boundless expanse of the forest. The freedom, at first, was overwhelming, a dizzying rush of wind and scent and sound. But instinct, long suppressed, surged forward, guiding her paws over the snow, her ears swiveling to catch every whisper of the wind, every rustle in the undergrowth. She paused one last time to look back at the receding shadows of the human world, a fleeting glance of gratitude before melting into the embrace of the wild, a true shadow in the vast, untamed landscape of Eagles Canyon. The air, thick with the scent of pine and damp earth, began to cool as twilight bled across the sky, painting the western horizon in strokes of lavender and gold. David, his arm around Sarah, watched the spectacle from their porch swing, the familiar creak a comforting rhythm. Koga, the Caucasian Shepherd, a vast white landscape of fur, lay at their feet, her big head resting on David's boot. It was a picture of perfect rural serenity, broken only by the chirping of crickets beginning their nightly chorus. Then it came, from the shadowy edge of the dense forest, a sound, thin and reedy yet undeniably distinct, pierced the quiet. A bobcat's cry. Not the frantic, desperate wail of a trapped animal, but something softer, almost conversational. Koga's massive ears, usually floppy, shot upright, swiveling toward the sound. A low, soft rumble, more a purr than a growl, vibrated deep in her chest. Her tail, usually a lazy metronome, barely twitched. Her eyes, dark and intelligent, were fixed on the tree line, not with aggression, but with an almost knowing stillness. It was a call that spoke of wildness, of an instinctual understanding that transcended species, a shared history imprinted in the deep currents of instinct. She had heard that cry before, hadn't she? The memory of a tiny, snarling bundle, carried gently in her massive jaws, stirred in her ancient mind. Then a flicker, a swift, reddish-brown blur darted across the very edge of the tree line, a ghost in the fading light. For a split second, two luminous green-gold eyes caught the porch light, reflecting it back like tiny embers before vanishing entirely into the deepening gloom. It was so fast, so fleeting, that David and Sarah might have doubted their own eyes. Had Koga not remained utterly still, her gaze unwavering? Was it Shadow the bobcat? The question hung unspoken in the air, a silent acknowledgement between the humans and their extraordinary dog. They would never know for certain. The wild rarely gave such definitive answers. It offered glimpses, whispers, promises. Koga slowly rose, her large body uncoiling with a deliberate grace that belied her size. She padded to the very edge of the porch, her big nose twitching, taking in the myriad scents of the coming night. The sweet perfume of honeysuckle mingled with the sharp tang of pine needles and something else, something subtle and musky, carried on the breeze from the forest. She inhaled deeply, her nostrils flaring, drawing in the essence of the wild, a silent dialogue with the unseen presence in the trees. Her tail gave one slow, deliberate wag. It was an acknowledgement, a connection spanning the domesticated and the untamed. Then, with a long, contented sigh that seemed to release all the tension from her massive frame, Koga turned. She walked back to David, not with the bounding energy of a puppy, but with the settled purpose of an ancient soul. She lay down beside him, her head once again resting on his boot, her eyes now soft and peaceful. The low rumble started again, a quiet, satisfied thrum. It wasn't a goodbye, not really. It was a silent farewell from freedom, an understanding that some bonds, forged in the crucible of rescue and rehabilitation, could stretch across the boundaries of species and wilderness, offering mutual healing and acceptance. For months, the memory of Shadow the bobcat, tiny and vulnerable, had haunted their thoughts, a silent question mark hanging over their sanctuary. Had they done enough? Had they truly given her the tools to survive? Tonight, in that fleeting glimpse in Koga's quiet response, an answer had been given. The wilderness had acknowledged their effort. The wild's whisper, carried on the evening breeze, wasn't a plea for help, but a statement of thriving, a testament to the resilience of nature and the profound impact of compassion. The cycle was complete. Koga shifted slightly, nudging David's hand with her nose. He responded with a gentle scratch behind her ears, her favorite spot. She leaned into his touch, her eyes closing completely, a soft snore rumbling in her chest. The quiet understanding on the porch deepened, a shared moment of profound peace. It wasn't about ownership or control, but about connection, about recognizing the inherent wildness in every living creature, even those brought into the fold of domesticity. The echo of the bobcat's cry had faded, but its message lingered, a reaffirmation that healing was a journey, and freedom, sometimes, was simply a whisper on the wind. If this story touched your heart, comment 1 if you're moved or 0 if you're speechless. Thanks for watching until the end. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more magical stories. See you next time.